My creepy college roommate. This was my first year of college. I had just finished unpacking my room, and my family had left. Later that day, my roommate finally arrived. Right from the start, I could tell this guy was the most socially awkward person I had ever met. I introduced myself as Dan and extended my hand for a shake. He paused, looked at my hand as if confused, then laughed, said, "Oh," and gave me a limp, dead fish handshake. I had to ask his name myself, as he didn't even bother to give it. His name was Dale. I tried to make conversation, but he only gave one-word answers, yes or no, with the occasional awkward chuckle. Within minutes, we were both on our beds, glued to our laptops, in complete silence. I was frustrated and already planning to request a room change. Anyone would be better than Dale. I thought Dale was just an extremely clumsy guy, but it soon became clear he was much stranger. I met some other guys on the floor, and they seemed cool, which was a relief. On the first night, I returned to the dorm after checking out the campus and found Dale in the same position he was in when I left. I said, "How's it going, Dale?" And he didn't reply, which honestly didn't surprise me. It was 9:30 p.m. I had nothing to do, so I turned off the lamp on my side and went to bed. I didn't fall asleep, though. Dale stayed on his laptop until 3 a.m. As soon as he finally closed it, I quickly drifted off, only to wake up an hour later. The blinds in our room were open, and the moonlight streaming in illuminated everything, including Dale, who was sitting on the edge of his bed, staring at me. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and asked, "Dale, what are you doing? The hell are you doing?" He whispered back, "Sorry," and lay down. The next morning, I woke up to find Dale was gone. I think that was the first time he had left the room. It was Saturday, the first Saturday of the school year, which meant orientation and all the associated activities. During orientation, as my group walked past the school gardens, I heard the students in front of me saying, "What is that guy doing over there?" I saw who they were talking about. It was Dale, who was literally sitting in the dirt behind a bush, stroking the bark of a tree with his hand. The group leader didn't notice, or else I'm sure she would have said something. I just walked past, staying quiet, but I eventually told the two students that he was my roommate. That's how I started a conversation and maybe made some friends. They expressed their sympathy. None of us knew if it was appropriate to laugh, but we did. I became friends with those two guys, and we agreed to meet up that evening. And when I got back to the dorm, I learned that I had been assigned a new roommate. Things were looking up fast. That evening, I left to meet my new acquaintances, and when I returned, Dale was sitting in a chair at the desk, facing the door. I said, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" He replied very casually, "Nothing." I sat on my bed and opened my laptop. It was then that I realized I had forgotten to lock it. I also noticed that all my emails were open, even ones I don't think I had read myself, and a bunch of my folders were open too. Dale must have been rummaging through my laptop. When I asked if he had done it, he loudly replied, "No," not even half a second after I finished the question. I could read him like an open book. This creepy guy had literally been on my computer when I was out. I knew it was him, but I didn't escalate the conflict. I was getting ready for bed, reached into my bed for my pajamas, and felt that my clothes had been moved too. Knowing I would be moving out forever tomorrow, I didn't say anything. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of thunder. I sat up and saw Dale on the floor going through my bag. This time, I turned on the lamp and confronted him. He played dumb, saying, "I think you accidentally took my toothbrush." That was the closest he got to wit, but I knew he was lying and realized something was wrong with him, so I didn't get physical. The next day, I met my new roommate in the same building, and things went well. On Sunday night, after having a normal conversation with the new roommate, who wasn't overly talkative but incomparably better than Dale, we both turned off the lights and went to sleep. For the third night in a row, I woke up at some strange hour to an unusual sound. It was a strange clicking noise. It wasn't constant, but I heard it at least twice every 30 seconds. I got up, hoping to find something harmless, like a heavy bag pressing on a weak floorboard, or even a mouse. But after checking the room, I realized the sound was coming from the other side of the door. The nightlight in the common hallway was always on, so by looking through the peephole, I could see the top of a person's head standing outside our door. They were looking down, so I couldn't see their face, but now, listening closely, I realized the tiny clicks were actually coming from the doorknob. I was sure the person was trying to open the door. I dialed the campus police. They arrived in the common hallway in less than 5 minutes, and only then did I feel safe enough to open the door. I saw that the officers had handcuffed Dale. I had a feeling it was him. I told them everything, that he was my former roommate, that he had gone through my things, which is why I moved out, and now he was trying to break into my new room. They took him away. I don't know what happened to him afterwards, but I never saw him again. He was either suspended for the semester or expelled. I finished the rest of my years in college like everyone else, but the nightmare experience with Dale still pops into my head from time to time. Creepy Encounter in the Woods, Binghamton University. This happened at Binghamton University during my sophomore year. I quickly made a large group of friends, and we would hang out every weekend. On one Friday in October, when our group didn't have big plans, 2 close friends and I decided to hang out in a nature preserve by the lake. There was a small clearing on the far side of the lake, convenient for building fires because it was far from campus security's eyes. Students sometimes came here to drink, smoke, and essentially take other substances. This spot was relatively unknown to most, and we liked it. That night, we just brought beer, built a fire, and chatted, which we called bro chat back then. As the night went on, time flew faster as the alcohol began to take effect. Eventually, we were laughing so hard that one of my friends was rolling on the ground in the leaves. Then my other friend abruptly stopped laughing and said, "Shh." We all tensed up and listened. The crunching of leaves and twigs was coming from a distance. We tossed our bottles into the lake. We weren't 21, and campus police often patrolled the woods on weekends. We hid the remaining beer in a backpack. I was quite drunk, so my paranoia was higher than usual. That probably applied to all of us. The fire gave us away, but the spot was so remote that few people ventured that deep into the woods. It seemed there was only one person in the distance. The crunch of a breaking twig much closer scared us all. None of us were confrontational types, and we lacked someone who would dare stand up and shout at whoever was walking around. Instead, we just sat in silence, shushing each other. We could hear someone or something walking around us, following a trajectory resembling the letter C, circling our fire. We literally felt like characters in the Blair Witch Project, because these sounds, the cracking of twigs, the rustling of leaves, kept echoing into our clearing. At first we laughed about it, but personally I soon became terrifyingly scared of who or what it might be. Suddenly, there was a loud thud that made all 3 of us jump. At first, I didn't understand what happened, though I saw the cause of the sound. It took a few seconds to realize a branch had been thrown in the center of our fire. One of my friends bolted and ran, while my other friend and I sat there looking at each other, half laughing, half alarmed. It still wasn't clear if this was a joke. Then, my friend screamed in pain as another branch struck him in the face. I grabbed the backpack and helped my friend up, and we ran as fast as we could back toward our dorms. Upon reaching the road that separated the preserve from our buildings, we stopped to catch our breath, but whoever was in the woods was clearly following us. Hearing footsteps approaching the road, we kept running back to the dorm. Back on our floor, we found the first friend who ran away in his room. We looked out his window down at the woods. Someone was pacing back and forth along the edge of the woods. Every time a car drove by, they'd hide back in the trees. Eventually, this someone walked into the woods for good, and we never saw them again. We continued our drinking in the room, and 10 minutes later we were laughing about the whole thing. It was only the next morning that we realized how terrifying the experience actually was. We never went into the woods after dark again. The Creepy Fraternity Party, Freshman Year, University of Iowa. This story took place during the first week of my freshman year at the University of Iowa. I was just starting to get used to my roommate. He was obsessed with joining a fraternity, and rush week was starting the following week, but the parties kicked off on the Thursday of the first week. My roommate didn't want to go alone, so he asked me to join him. I happily agreed, even though I wasn't planning on joining. After all, I came to a party university and wanted to go to parties. My roommate wanted to check out one fraternity on Thursday and then go to others on Friday and Saturday. That Thursday, we headed to what was perhaps the lowest-ranked fraternity. I even think it might have been an underground one. His logic was to have a backup option in case the more prestigious fraternities didn't accept him. The frat house was very far from campus, in a more dilapidated area of downtown. We pulled up to a corner house, and if it weren't for the blaring music and cars parked everywhere, we never would have thought it was a frat house. It looked like they had settled for the first house they could find. We knocked, and we were immediately met by a short, plump guy in a white t-shirt with a red cup in his hand. His shirt was soaked with sweat under the armpits and on his stomach. He invited us in. The party itself was in a horribly dimly lit room where there were probably 50 guys crammed into the living room. It was unbelievably hot. Worse, I saw maybe 2 girls in the entire party, and neither of them was attractive. I lasted about 20 minutes, talking to one bulky foreign guy after another, all of whom gave the impression of being antisocial. Eventually, I waved to my roommate to get ready to leave, but a large group of guys by the door forced us to wait a bit longer to avoid the awkwardness of an early departure. I kept drinking the cheap beer they were serving. I had maybe 5 cups before I felt any effect. A large guy with a small bottle in his hand approached me, handed it to me smirking, and said, "This will get you hammered." I gave a fake laugh and thanked him, expecting him to leave, but he just watched, as if waiting for me to drink. And I did. It was maybe 2 shots of some hard liquor. Then the guy started talking to me, and every time I hinted that I was trying to leave, he tried to pull me deeper into this one-sided conversation. Soon, everything started to swim. I remember suddenly feeling dizzy, and the room seemed to get darker. That was the last thing I remembered before waking up in a dark room, lying in a bed. I could hear muffled music beyond the closed doors, so I knew I was still in the frat house. The room was very dark, but I could make out some furniture and a small closet door. Nothing more. But even through the booming music, I heard the sound of a crumpled plastic bag coming from the closet, as if someone had accidentally stepped on it. I ran out of the room and down the stairs back to the crowded living room. I found my roommate and shoved him out the front door, past a group of guys standing in a circle. On the way back to campus, I told my roommate that I had been drugged. He almost called the police, but I said it would be foolish and pointless. Then he asked me an uncomfortable question. Was I sexually assaulted? I didn't feel any pain, and all my clothes were on, so I concluded that no. When I checked the time, I realized I had only been unconscious for 10 minutes before waking up. Whatever that guy gave me must have been some kind of dud, thank God. That was my experience attending an underground, ghetto frat party, and it remains my scariest life experience. Knocks in the corner. Sophomore year, single dorm. For the first semester of my sophomore year, I had a single dorm room. It was in the corner of the floor, slightly isolated from the other rooms. You had to turn a corner to see the door. It was convenient because I could hang out with friends and have guests, but still have privacy for studying and sleeping. A few weeks into the semester, while I was studying for a biology exam, the silence was broken by a knock. It took me a moment to realize it was a light tapping on the door. It was so quiet I barely heard it. I yelled, "Come in," but the door didn't open. I got up to open it. No one was there. I walked around the corner to look down the hallway. No one either. Obviously, someone was playing a trick on me. I went back to my bed and continued studying, leaving the door open. No one came back. The next night, a few minutes after I turned off the lamp, the knock on the door returned. Only this time it was louder, more like a thud. I yelled, "Who's there?" and the knocking stopped again. No one answered. I quickly jumped out of bed and opened the door. My little private hallway was empty again. I ran the 10 steps to the corner to look down the main floor hallway. No one. The next morning, I asked the few guys in the dorm if they were playing a prank on me. Everyone said no. The next night, I woke up after only 3 hours of sleep. Someone was knocking on my door again, this time louder than ever. I couldn't decide whether to open the door. Mustering my courage, I jumped up and opened it. No one was there, as I expected. But this time, I ran at full speed down the small hallway. Turning the corner, I saw the back of a person disappearing around the far corner, on the opposite side of the hallway. I ran as fast as I could, and upon turning into the next hallway, where the person had been just seconds ago, I saw the door at the end slam shut. It was the bathroom door. I felt ready to confront this prankster and threw open the bathroom door with force. The light was off. I turned it on, expecting to see someone hiding, but no one was there. My first instinct was to check the 2 toilet stalls, both of which were closed. I knelt down and looked under both doors. From under one door, I could see 2 heavy black boots. I took a deep breath and flung the stall door open. I was confused. The boots were on the floor, but the person wearing them was gone. And then I heard a creepy giggle. It wasn't a woman's or a child's. It was the kind of laugh I could only imagine from a very old, crazy man. For some reason, my confidence vanished, and I was scared to death. I ran back to my room and locked the door. I jumped into bed and started texting all my friends, but of course everyone was asleep. The knock repeated one more time that night. I ignored it. It continued for about 30 seconds before whoever it was finally gave up. The next day, I talked to everyone on my floor. No one else had heard the knocking, and everyone swore they weren't playing a trick on me. Everyone seemed genuine. I don't know why this person decided to target me or who they were. Judging by the boots and the laugh, it was an elderly man, and that disturbs me.